Hi, thank you all for joining the call today. I'm here with our campaign manager, David Pluff, who will get us started.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Just want to give you a sense of where we see things post-Pennsylvania. First of all, on the delegates, there's still some CD data to come in later this morning. Our estimate is her net will be either 10 or 12. If you give her 12, that takes the our pledged delegate lead, which we had at 171 before Pennsylvania, down to 159. And we have, at that point, now with superdelegates and pledged delegates, we are less than 300 delegates away from securing the nomination. So we're going to, obviously we have a large number of delegates coming up in 2 weeks, and we will keep you posted as that's an important number. Obviously, obviously between the allocation of the rest of the pledged delegates are going to be well within 100 in terms of the number of soup delegates needed to get to 24. In terms of pledged delegates, at this point, Senator Clinton would need to win 70% of all the remaining pledged delegates to erase the lead in pledged delegates, and even to get to 100. To get her deficit to 100, she'd need to win 57% of the remaining pledged delegates. By comparison, last night it looks like she's going to win 53 to 54% of the pledged delegates. So, she obviously in these remaining 9 contests needs to win with big margins. We continue to think pledged delegates is the most important marker here. It's how we constructed our strategy, and it's how she did, and we think that's an important point. If this was about popular vote, which we have a comfortable lead in, and don't see that lead diminishing by the time June 3rd comes around, but we would have gone and lived in California and tried to run up the score in Illinois and spend more time in New York and New Jersey. But we constructed our strategy based on pledged delegates, as did she. And we think that is the fairest assessment, and it's clearly the most important assessment that the superdelegates are going to factor in. There's 9 contests left, 408 pledged delegates remaining. Once we get into May, states begin getting bonus delegates for holding their contests later. So we have 4 delegates at stake on May 3rd in Guam, and then on May 6th, there are 187 delegates at stake, which is more than were at stake in Pennsylvania yesterday, 115 in North Carolina, 72 in Indiana. It's interesting on North Carolina, you all have heard the Clinton campaign consistently talk about big battleground states and how primary performance matters. Well, North Carolina is a big battleground state, 15 electoral votes, one of the larger states in the country. So by their own definition, it would appear they need to win North Carolina and win it by some margin if they're going to be consistent in their evaluation of which states matter. We have always looked at these states as a package. We said that after Ohio and Texas, which is where are we at the conclusion of these contests on June 3rd. I think it's important we'll take stock, and I think the superdelegates will take stock where we are the morning of May 7th, and then where we are on the morning of June 3rd. And we believe that on every measure, there have been 46 contests so far. Our record is 30-16. We've won twice as many states. We've got a very significant pledged delegate lead and 1 more vote. So we don't believe that the structure of the race is going to change fundamentally. Senator Clinton is obviously a strong candidate, and we congratulate her on her victory yesterday. But she really does need to try and win out here and win with some margin so that she can make some erosion in the pledged delegate lead here of a significant nature. And again, even to get the pledged delegate lead down to 100, which I think, by any reasonable standard might be even too high for the superdelegates to try and overturn, she'd have to win 57% of the remaining pledged delegates. Obviously, the Clinton campaign is spending a lot of time talking about the electability. I'd make a few points about that. First of all, in the state of Pennsylvania, if you look at the aggregation of public polls, the Obama and Clinton performance against McCain are negligibly different. Ohio, very close. But I think if you look at a number of other states, California, by the way, which is a state that is a blue state, the notion that they talk about, California and New York, any Democratic candidate is going to carry those states. But even in California, we perform slightly stronger than Senator Clinton does against McCain. But there are some states where you see real market difference in performance. Colorado, over a 12-point difference. We win the state of Colorado right now in most matchups against McCain. Senator Clinton trails by double digits. Even a state like Connecticut, we are up by over 14 points in most of the public polls on average. Senator Clinton only leads by 4, so that would be a competitive state. State of Iowa, always an important battleground. Our lead over McCain is averaging over 6. Senator Clinton trails McCain by 7 points. State of Maine, we're up by 11, almost 12 points. She's only up by 5. The state of Michigan, which the Clinton campaign likes to talk about, we actually, if you look at the public polls, have a very slight lead over McCain. Senator Clinton trails by 2 points. Minnesota, we're up 5. She's up 1. We make Montana competitive. Clinton is losing to McCain by almost 20 points. North Carolina, very important battleground state, certainly will be if we're the nominee. Clinton loses to McCain by over 10, and we're more competitive. North Dakota, a state where actually, surprisingly, we've been ahead in a couple public polls. We consider that to be competitive, and Clinton loses by over 20. New Mexico, we have a slight lead against McCain. Clinton's down a couple of points. Nevada, we lead by over 3. Clinton loses about a 6 or 7 point difference there. In Oregon, another state, by the way, coming up, battleground state, May 20th. So again, by the Clinton definition of things, a must-win for them. We lead by over 7 points. Clinton is in the red against McCain. As I mentioned, Pennsylvania roughly equal. The state of Virginia, we make it competitive, and Clinton trails McCain by double digits. Wisconsin, which was the closest battleground state the last 2 contests, we're up by 3. And Senator Clinton trails by 3. So if you look at the aggregation, both in terms of, and we don't think, performance in primaries is the most important measure. It's how you're doing against McCain right now. But we've performed well in a lot of those states in the primaries, but we're stronger right now in a matchup with McCain. And so we think, as we continue to talk to superdelegates and make the case about the strength of our performance, we think that there's an enormous amount of data that shows we'd be the strongest candidate. And, if you look at Pennsylvania now, the truth is we obviously did very, very well with younger voters yesterday, won them convincingly, 61 to 39. But the truth is quite a few of those younger voters obviously are going to vote for Senator Clinton if she were to be our nominee. She wins seniors by about the same margin, and a lot of those folks are going to come home. The truth is if you look at the contest over time, we have won voters under 60 in 19 states, tied in 1 in New Hampshire. Senator Clinton's only won voters under 60 in 9 states. That cohort of 40 to 60 is always the most volatile in a presidential election. And obviously we believe we have much stronger performance capability against independents in that age range. Voters 18 to 44, again, particularly the voters sort of 30 to 44 being a key swing in a presidential election. We've won them in 23 states. But this is just the states that have exit polls pre-Pennsylvania, so it's 29 states. We've won them in 23 states, tied in 2. She's only won them in 4. Voters under $50,000 a year household income, we've won them in 14 states, Clinton in 15. So, a lot of the narrative that they're putting out there, we think we have shown, with voters under 60 yesterday, we were essentially tied. And so, we have real strength, obviously, with younger voters. She's shown strength throughout these contests with older Democrats. We strongly believe that when we do have a nominee, the vast majority of these Democrats are going to come home. And the question is against someone like John McCain, who for a Republican has unique strength with independent voters, who has the ability to be most competitive with him, with independent voters, who's got the ability to pull some younger, moderate Republicans away from McCain. We think that is most definitively Senator Obama. So we think the structure of the race remains the same. We've got 9 more contests. We look at them as a package. We're going to try and do as well as we can in each of them and get as many delegates as we can. We think the contest 13 days from now, again, there's 187 delegates. North Carolina is most certainly going to be an important battleground state in the fall, and so an important day in 2 weeks. So with that, we'd be happy to take any questions folks have.
Well, actually, David, let me just add to what you had to say here. ABC News is now reporting that the Clinton campaign has falsely reflected on their own reporting to indicate that they've moved ahead in the popular vote. I've sent you the report, but essentially they've taken what ABC News reported with some skepticism, the inclusion of Florida and Michigan, and made that as an affirmation of their counting of votes. So take a look at that. And I would also note that this morning Diane Sawyer on Good Morning America specifically said that ABC was not counting both Florida and Michigan. So take a look at the report, and with that, we will open it up for questions. Operator, we are ready for questions.
Okay, thank you. If you'd like to ask a question today, please do so by pressing star followed by the digit 1 on your telephone keypad. You will hear a voice prompt on your phone line indicating that the line has been opened. And please state your name before posing your question. Again, that will be star 1 for any questions or comments today. We will take our first question at this time. Caller, your line is now open. Please go ahead.
Hey, David. Bill Salmon, Washington Examiner. First of all, if you're losing Reagan Democrats to Clinton, what makes you think you won't lose them to McCain? Secondly, doesn't yesterday's result plant the seeds of doubt in the minds of superdelegates? And finally, given the degree to which you're outspending Hillary, why can't you, in her words, close the deal?
Well, first of all, I do think if you look at our favorable rating with people who voted yesterday, it's very, very high. And some voters in states choose Senator Clinton over us, just like a lot of voters choose Senator Obama over Senator Clinton. But as I mentioned with young voters, we have dominated. We have, and when I say young voters, I'm younger voters under 45. We have won voters under 60 in more states than Senator Clinton has. Doesn't mean that those people wouldn't vote for her in a general election. I think the vast majority of the Democrats that are voting in these primaries and caucuses are going to support the nominee. And we've had real strength if you look over the body of the entire campaign, which I think you have to do. As I said, we have won voters under $50,000 and who make under $50,000 per year in 14 states, including some important battlegrounds like Virginia and Wisconsin and Iowa and Missouri and Delaware and Georgia, which we think could be competitive in the fall. So, we've shown strength there. Secondly, listen, you have to be realistic. Senator Clinton is a strong candidate. I mean, she is. There are some states that favor her, and there's some states that favor us. Pennsylvania was clearly a state demographically that was favorable to her, and we fought as hard as we could. And at some points in the campaign, had a 25-point deficit. We were able to whittle that down. Right now, I think the margin's 9.4. The Secretary of State in Pennsylvania actually has the margin closer than that. So I'm sure when all the precincts are counted today, we'll have a final margin and a final delegate margin, which again is going to be 10 or 12. So, listen, our strategy here, we assume this is going to go through June 3rd, and that we have believed that for some time, and have staff and are organizing in all the states through Montana and South Dakota. Organizing heavily in Guam, which has a contest on May 3rd. So, we'll see where we are at the end of it. And we believe at the end of the day, we will remain our pledged delegate lead. I mentioned, I gave a quick overview of where we see these battleground states. We think we are the strongest candidate against John McCain. I think if you see the national polling, we've got a slight edge. But more importantly, in these battleground states, when you go sort of state by state, there are some states where we're much stronger than Senator Clinton. And as it relates to superdelegates, we'll see. This isn't something that has to be a theoretical exercise. You all can evaluate it very clearly as over the next few weeks and see how the superdelegates break. Since February 5th, we've had a dominant advantage in superdelegate gains, and we're going to keep making our case and keep trying to get folks out. As I said, we've sort of reached an important milestone. We are, after Pennsylvania, less than 300 delegates away from securing the nomination. So, when you break out the pledged delegates that are likely to be allocated over the next 6 weeks, that leaves us under 100 in terms of superdelegates. And, we're talking as many of them as we can. And, I think one of the reasons we've had such superdelegate growth since February 5th is electability and, real strength in battleground states with superdelegates in the interior part of the country and in the South. And we're going to just keep doing as well as we can with the superdelegates. And again, we think we think this is a flawed exercise to somehow suggest, performance in primaries is the leading indicator of what's going to happen in a general. Again, I think our favorable rating with a lot of the Democrats who voted for Senator Clinton yesterday is very, very high. And again, I would suggest that, with younger voters where she's had some issues, if she were to be the nominee, she'd get the lion's share of those. So I think it's important to see where the race stands right now vis-a-vis McCain. And again, with McCain, at the end of the day, the Democratic nominee is going to get the vast majority of Democratic voters. And so the question is, if you cannot carry independent voters against McCain, and almost every piece of evidence suggests Senator Clinton would be really challenged in that respect, you're going to have a hard time winning 270 electoral votes. And we think that because of our strength with independent voters, we put more states in play, western states, states like Virginia. We also think we'll create terrific turnout dynamics with all voters under 40 and with African-American voters. And you put all that together, and I think it makes us a much stronger general election candidate.
Thank you, and we'll take our next question. Caller, please go ahead. Your line has now been opened.
Hi, this is Mark Johnson with the Charlotte Observer in North Carolina. President Clinton is visiting the state here today, and given his comments yesterday, kind of stepping into the whole race card issue again, I was wondering, do you see him as much of a liability as he is an asset for the Clinton campaign?
Well, they obviously, he's been campaigning very hard and is a draw, so I think that, I'm sure they'll continue to use him as they did in Pennsylvania, and we'll probably see him a lot in North Carolina, Indiana. And, I'll leave it to others to assess his merits, but, he's seeing a lot of people and making the case for her candidacy. So I think that obviously there's been events from time to time that seem to take their campaign off message. But again, he's working really hard, and he's doing 5 or 6 events a day, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of them in North Carolina and Indiana.
Thank you. And moving on to our next question, please go ahead. Your line is open.
Hi, it's Kathy Gray with the Detroit Free Press. The Florida and Michigan question is still out there, and it seems to be looming larger even now. Wondering if there's any movement towards some sort of resolution to the situation.
Well, first of all, to follow up on something Bill Burton said, the popular vote in Michigan and Florida, you all are covering this race very closely. You've seen us campaign vigorously in 46 contests. We weren't even on the ballot in Michigan. There was no campaign in Florida. So for the Clinton campaign, which professes to be the toughest and ready to take on the Republicans to try and count the results of elections, that I think all of you would agree there are no resemblance to the rest of these contests, is not going to work. It's very clear the superdelegates aren't going to have much tolerance for that. In terms of result, now both of them have said they're no longer going to do revotes, so we're hopeful, and we have been talking to officials in Michigan and Florida that there can be some resolution reached. Obviously, if there's not a resolution reached, one of the first things we're going to do upon securing the nomination is make sure that the delegations are taken care of and that we begin building a vigorous campaign in Michigan and Florida. So, we think the fairest outcome, again, is a splitting of the delegates 50-50, which would allow them to be seated. But we're listening to other proposals, and, the Clinton campaign seems to be not in favor of any resolution except for the most extreme one, and I don't think a fair reading of that would suggest that that's a good outcome. So, we're, I think, the party now that's most interested in some resolution. The Clinton campaign simply wants the results of those contests to be ratified, and they're not going to be. They didn't campaign there. We didn't campaign there. They were against the DNC rules. And so, our hope is that there can be some resolution soon. There'll certainly be one in June, so that these states can participate fully in the convention, and probably just as importantly is to build winning campaigns in both of these states for November.
Thank you. And taking our next question, please go ahead. That line is open.
Brian Howie from Howie Politics, Indiana. David, outside of the 1st and 7th congressional districts in northwest Indiana and Indianapolis, can you tell me what you can about how you're going to approach the Indiana primary, what kind of strategies we're likely to see?
Well, Brian, we're going to campaign as hard as we can. Senator Obama's there today, and we'll be there a lot between now and May 6th. And we're going to try and, what we've done, pretty much in every state, is to campaign everywhere. Areas we think we'll do well in, areas where, that are more challenging for us, to try and get as many votes and as many delegates. And, that's what we're going to do in Indiana. We think Indiana will be a close contest and an important one, just as North Carolina, one of the larger battleground states is going to be a very important contest. So we're going to campaign as hard as we can. We've had very good trips there, have a lot of good support, and we know Senator Bayh will be working overtime for Senator Clinton. But we have some political support, lucky to have a big and vibrant grassroots organization, and we're going to campaign as hard as we can and try and have as good a result as we can on the night of May 6th.
Okay, thank you. And our next question, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Jane Newton-Small. Sorry for all the feedback. Hopefully this will be better. But I wanted to ask two things. First of all, the danger in letting the race go on for too long, especially given how negative the race is going to get. And along those lines, there was a blind comment in the Washington Post this morning saying that you plan to go negative and bring up some of the scandals of the, cattle prices and things from the previous Clinton administration. Can you please address that?
Well, we're not going to do that. That was, I think, an unnamed strategist claiming to have some relationship with us, and I can assure you, whoever was in an act of puffery suggesting they had some knowledge of what we're doing is incorrect. So we have not talked about those issues in the campaign and won't. So I think that, but I think that, generally, I think that, the next, there are some benefits to how long this is going on. I think that, both campaigns built good organizations in the state of Pennsylvania. We certainly feel that, we are better known there. And again, I think our favorable ratings amongst all those who participated yesterday was very high. And our favorable rating amongst those who intend to vote in the general election has improved a great deal. There was remarkable number of reports yesterday of independents trying to vote who hadn't re-registered, who intended to vote for Senator Obama, which we think speaks to one of our strengths against McCain. The state of North Carolina, the state of Oregon, the state of Montana. There's going to be a number of states where that we believe will be competitive in the fall, where we will build organization. And so I think that, obviously I think that you're beginning to see, I think most people agree that, we want some conclusion to this by June, so that the nominee has enough time to put together their convention and get more firmly organized in these states and beginning to to have a message discussion with John McCain. So I do think that most people would agree that a scenario of going to the convention is one that would be more problematic than not. But I think there are some benefits to how long this is going on. Obviously, I think the New York Times editorial spoke to Senator Clinton's campaign and the tone, and hopefully they'll take note of that. Another state yesterday, even one that they won, where a large majority of people thought that she was attacking unfairly. So, hopefully they'll take that into account. But again, I think there's a lot of benefits. I think we will have, now in just about every battleground state, the campaigns will have been very, very active. Tens of thousands of volunteers in each of these, which I think is an underappreciated aspect of certainly our strength. We have been very reliant on our grassroots support. But, Senator Clinton has also had a good organization, too. And I think when we're the nominee, we're going to have in these states a far superior organization than John McCain and the Republicans. And I think that's important. So, we just assume the race will go on through June 3rd. I think the superdelegates clearly are indicating they're going to make a pretty quick decision if they haven't already at that point, and we'll move on to the general election. But again, I think that there's a lot of positives in terms of I think we're going to be far, far better organized in the battleground states than any nominee in history, just because of both how long the contest has gone on, but you've got two aggressive campaigns fighting hard and building really, really good organizations in these states. And I think the nominee will benefit from that.
And we will take our next question. Please go ahead. The line is open.
Hello, this is Rodney Livingston at the SPNN.NET television network here in Washington. And you've touched on these two questions briefly, but I just wanted to arrange it a little bit differently. What are the campaign's thoughts on the final decision being made at the convention? And then an off-topic question. There in that region, Indiana and the like, there have been 18 earthquakes and aftershocks. And I'd just like to know the campaign's thoughts on opportunities or missed opportunities, since there were minor damages with FEMA doing rehearsals and practicing what an Obama administration might look at and those types of events to enhance the capabilities of FEMA?
Well, we can get someone who's more got more background in these issues to get back to on the FEMA question. I do think that obviously FEMA under this president has not performed as well as it could, and I think that when Senator Obama becomes president, it's something that is going to have to really be upgraded and operate at the absolutely highest level of efficiency. It's a core governmental function, and it's the kind of thing that the government can't fully count on response. If voters and American citizens can't fully count on response, it's just such a core function. It raises real questions. Secondly, we're preparing for every scenario. So of course, we are going to make sure if this does go to the convention that we are properly organized and in a position to succeed. I do think that what you're seeing from the superdelegates in growing numbers is not a lot of appetite for that. So, our sense is that assuming the contest goes all the way through June 3rd, I think you're going to see the superdelegates make a decision shortly after that. And again, we believe at the conclusion of these primaries on June 3rd, we're going to be a very manageable number away from the nomination. And, we're increasingly going to focus on that because, we can see, if Senator Clinton were to win, I mentioned Senator Clinton would need to win 57% of the remaining pledged delegates just to get the pledged delegate deficit down to 100. And then, to win the nomination, she'd have to win a huge majority of the undecided superdelegates. So, and I think that's an important point to process here is, let's move away from the theoretical into the world of reality here. How is she going to do this? Well, she's going to have to win a big majority of the remaining pledged delegates, and even if she does that, she's going to need to win a huge majority of the undecided superdelegates. And we're obviously on track here where we're going to have a very small number needed to secure the nomination after all these contests are over. And, well under 50% of the undecided superdelegates. So, we think that's a number that bears a lot of watching, and that's really how we've built our strategy in this campaign and tried to execute, which is we're about the pursuit of 2024 in terms of delegates. And, we think we're well on our way to getting there.
And if you want to follow up with me on your other question, feel free to email me at bburton@barackobama.com.
Thank you, and again, we'll move on. Please go ahead. The line has now been opened.
David, Chuck Babington with the Associated Press. You talked a minute ago about the value of spending a lot of time in Pennsylvania because there'll be a battleground state. But really, if you look ahead, no Democrat needs to win Indiana and North Carolina to win the election in November. Bill Clinton proved that. And it looks like if you really look at all the races between now and June 3, only West Virginia and Oregon are arguably battleground states. Isn't this a little frustrating from here on out that you're having to spend as much time and money as you're going to have to in states that you don't really need in November?
Well, I would actually say, we view both North Carolina and Montana additionally as real opportunities. And I think that, one of the important, I think this is really an important point. I mean, strategically, we certainly intend to do this, and I think we will have the best chance we will have to win the general election is to stretch the playing field. And, rather than having to win every state you're competing in, expand the map. And so, we believe North Carolina is a state we're going to fight very hard in and have a good chance to win. And so, the sort of Kerry-Bush map, I think obviously the vast majority of those states are going to be battled over again. But we think that we will add states like Virginia, states like North Carolina, maybe some of the other southern states. We see we are much stronger out west than Senator Clinton in Colorado, in New Mexico, in Nevada. As I mentioned, in Oregon, which is a state you mentioned, we have a healthy lead over Senator McCain, and Senator Clinton trails McCain. In the state of Washington, we have a very healthy lead. It's very competitive between McCain and Clinton. So, you could see Washington State being competitive, but certainly a lean Obama state, I think in a McCain-Clinton matchup, it is an absolute toss-up. We believe the state of Montana, the state of North Dakota. We have the organizational ability and the financial ability and the appeal to put a lot of states in play. And so, we are going to, and we think that's critically important. We think it's going to help down ballot races, too. But we think that if we head into the post-convention period only playing in 14, 15 states, that really creates a no margin for error situation for our nominee. We're not going to do that. So we look at the opportunity in North Carolina as really, really important so that we can, and again, we believe North Carolina, I mean, the Clinton campaign, Harold Ickes said that the Carolinas weren't going to be competitive in the general election. They then corrected themselves and said North Carolina would be competitive. So they said it's important. They like to talk about these states as battleground states. So, by their own definition, North Carolina would seem to be a critical test that they need to win. But we think the structure that gets built in North Carolina is going to be really important for the general election. And the same thing in Montana. You mentioned West Virginia and Oregon. So, we think, first of all, we can't control any of this. We assume this is going to go through June 3rd, and so we're going to have to build campaigns in the remaining 7 states and the 2 territories, whether they're battleground or not. But I do think we have, in some of these states, the ones we've just talked about, they are battleground states. And so, there is a silver lining there in terms of how long this is going on, as we will be better prepared, I think, to wage a competitive general election campaign in a state like North Carolina because of this.
Thank you. And moving on again, please go ahead. The line is open.
Hi, it's Christina Bellantoni with the Washington Times. David, you said previously that as soon as Senator Obama gets the nomination, assuming he does, that you guys would start organizing in Michigan and Florida. And the way you're talking, it sounds like you expect to get the nomination. Are you starting to organize there? And then second question, Senator Clinton raised $3.5 million since the polls closed. Can you give an idea if Senator Obama's fundraising has upticked in the last 24 hours?
Well, our supporters continue to, contribute at high levels, and most importantly, continue to volunteer in really historic numbers. So, I think that Senator Clinton, I guess they can now pay off some of their vendors, which I'm sure the vendors will be pleased about. But, listen, they have a big, they've raised a lot of money. They'll continue to raise a lot of money. They're spending a lot of money in Indiana right now. You're not seeing the disparity that they claimed in Pennsylvania. By the way, by the end in Pennsylvania, we were much more comparatively equal in terms of spending than maybe in the earlier part of the contest. So they're going to have all the money they need to run good campaigns in Indiana, North Carolina, and the rest of these contests. So, we're going to continue to raise what we think we need and also continue to put a huge premium on making sure we continue to recruit new people into the campaign to be part of our field effort.
And with that, we will call it a day. Just one last point on Chuck Babington's question. There's data that backs up what it was that David Plouffe was saying. The last Rasmussen poll out of North Carolina taken on April 10th showed that McCain and Obama tied at 47 in the general election head-to-head matchup, but McCain beat Hillary 51-40. And in Oregon, Obama beats McCain 51-42, but Hillary just barely beats him 47-46. So with that, we'll call it a day. If you have any other questions, feel free to follow up.